going on, my friends? I'm Rick and not, right? Don't have my upper teeth in. All right, so I'm looking a little bit older than I usually do. Welcome to my living room. It's yet another Monday, every other week. The wife is up at the shop doing some odds and ends and cleaning for some mad money, and I worked last night. I did a interceptor at an IHOP. Started at 6 p.m. and got done about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock this morning. So I got some sleep in me, but not as much as I like. So we've been hearing this crap about the open border and this apparently anybody and everybody can just roll across the border, nobody stopping nobody, and then this influx of drugs and fentanyl. Fentanyl's the big boogeyman right now. Yeah, it's some bad stuff, but so's crack cocaine and so's cocaine and so's LSD and heroin, and a lot of that comes across the border too, right? But guess what? It's not becoming as a surprise to you. Y'all, most of y'all as old as me or been around long enough to know that's been a problem since day one. People have been bringing shit across borders since borders existed. And that's honest to God's truth. That's also been, it's like the immigration issue. So, no, the problem isn't a, quote, open border. The fact that the border is not wide open, that is a fallacy. And it's a dangerous fallacy because there's too many of our fellow Americans who don't bother to educate themselves beyond their immediate needs and their immediate desires. And so that puts them in a position of being susceptible to other people who they think may know what they're talking about. You know these people. You're surrounded by these people. These are people you work with every day, members of your own family. Hell, you could be one of these damn people. You know what I'm saying? So, there's no open fucking border. I mean, there is a crisis, an immigration crisis, without a freaking doubt. No question about it. And are Biden's policies impacting that? Yeah, I'm going to say that they are impacting it. If nothing else, he has a bit of a lackadaisical attitude a little bit, or it's some kind of weird personal thing of his, because he seems to be, well, we can't turn away these people. Well, sure, you can turn away these people. We've been turning away these people forever, and we will be turning away people forever. I mean, what the process is overwhelmed at the moment. So somehow the word's gotten out, and I imagine a bunch of our Republican elected officials running their jaws about this open border crap that's traveled far and wide, especially down into South America, maybe even intentionally far and wide. I mean, you want to talk about conspiracies. The world is full of possible conspiracies, and guess what? A lot of them are true. A lot of them are true. So, if it's in your political interest to stir up a bunch of shit so it makes your opposing side look terrible, well, we have seen a lot of that lately from the Republican Party and some of their not so savvy and slick individuals who pull some pretty stupid stunts that are blatant and obvious for most of us to go, oh, yeah, that don't make no damn sense, right? So the fact that we have no damn open border, I mean, that's a load of crap. And we talk about borders, the Great Wall. We're going to build this wall. Trump proposed it for part of his campaign, a big part of the year. Oh, we're going to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall. We're going to make Mexico pay for it. How did that turn out, Chuck? Did Mexico pay for 1 foot of the southern so-called border wall that didn't really amount to much? And how many tens of millions of dollars did y'all invest in it privately in government funds? And you only accomplished to get a couple miles of it, man, put up? Y'all hired the wrong people to build your wall, because there's plenty of folks up here that can know how to build a good solid fence for a hell of a lot less money. No, the fact of the matter is humanity's been making frickin' walls for thousands of years, and what good does any of these damn walls do? I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, fill in the buttons. We've got the Berlin Wall for a better part of 50 damn years. This was a wall designed to keep people in, not keep people out. The Soviet Union did not really want people running across the border and having free access to the West, specifically in Berlin itself. But what, they tend to play down, or we tend to ignore, was the fact that this wall actually stretched across the entirety of Germany, separating East and West Germany and for miles. It was just barbed wire fence and minefields. Surprising how barbed wire fence and minefields can make a pretty potent wall. So if our guys really truly had wanted to build a wall to keep everybody out, to control access to this country, we really weren't trying very hard to build this goddamn wall of theirs. And then, like I said, go back to ancient antiquity. The Chinese built the Great Wall of China. You can see it from space. Everybody can see it from space if you believe, that kind of shit works. Because there's always some folks out there who don't think any of that shit's why. But the whole point of the Great Wall of China, which stretched several thousand miles at one point, was to keep people out. The idea was to stop great massive hordes of Mongols, Kublai Khan and Kublai Khan and all the other Khans who wanted to come over here and basically raid and trash and burn and plunder frickin' China, as they did a lot of the Middle Eastern countries and stuff at various times in history. So that was their main goal of building this massive wall. And thousands of Chinese workers died to build it. And thousands of Chinese soldiers have died over the centuries to defend it. At the end of the day, did it keep the people out? They worked for a little while. Yes. Did it slow down massive hordes of rampaging Mongols? Yeah, probably. But usually what happened? Greed and bribery. They just bribed the guards at the damn gate and left the door open and let them in. Or they rode around the end of it, which is why they kept having to expend it out and extend it out and extend it out. So at some point, it kind of failed. Walls don't work. History proves it over and over and over again. Walls don't work. The only good wall, you know what? Next time you're driving by a prison sometime, take in consideration that the walls are not what's keeping the inmates in. Sorry, but that's the God's truth. And they'll be reluctant to tell you this, but the people in charge will tell you this. It's not the inmates or the fences and the walls. It's not the guards. Because the guards are woefully understaffed, outnumbered, and there are a lot of inmates that have nothing else better to do but sit there all day long and think about the other side of that wall. So if there weren't an understanding amongst the population in prison that there's going to be gross punishment and worse if you try to riot and race the wall and break out, otherwise more and more people would do it. The fact is, most inmates don't want to get that much more trouble. They just already did. They're trying to do their time to get the fuck out and go home so they can screw up and come back again. Not all of them. There's a lot of inmates that go to prison, learn their lessons, or at least become a little wiser about how they perceive themselves in the world, and then go forward and do the best they can. But there's always that revolving door because there's a handful of people that you'll never reach, and it's no big deal with them. They're not, it is another form of life, a different way of life. So at the end of the day, the walls don't do jack. And the southern border, we've had various border patrols and fences and blockades and things for decades, for 100 plus years. And what do? They find ways to fly over. They find ways to dig under. They find ways to sail around it. And I'm talking specifically the drugs. Right, so we've been fighting this quote war on drugs. Actually, I misquoted in a previous video when I said in the early '80s, going back to Reagan, and it turns out it was actually Nixon who initiated the so-called war on drugs, and Reagan ratcheted it up. So Nixon initiated it, Reagan ratcheted it up. So in the late '70s, mid '70s, we start this war on drugs. And that includes trying to enforce drug enforcement at the border, in and around the border, because a large portion of drugs that are used on the streets in America are produced in large quantities in America or in South American countries, because the laws are different down there, and they get away with shit that they wouldn't get away with up here, especially on a large scale. We're talking factory scale. If you look at you see the movies and the TV series, They busted, there's 21 kilos of cocaine. How much exactly is that of raw, pure cocaine? So how many farmers had to, how much cocoa or a coca plant or whatever the fuck it is they used to make that shit out of? They needed a very good sized operation to produce just that. And that's a tiny drop in a huge bucket of consumption. Now, well, meth is a different animal. Meth rarely, very little of meth comes across the border from Mexico. That's a fallacy. Most meth is manufactured in people's bathtubs and sheds in their backyards. They've gotten a little bit more away from doing some of that stuff because people have moved to different drugs and stuff. I don't know. I don't keep up with that stuff. My days of drug use and stuff of that nature are long gone, and I haven't kept up in 30 years, so I don't know what the thing is today. There's another reason some of my teeth are missing, right? You pay prices for some of the choices we make. Either you learn from that, or you continue to make prices and keep paying for this shit until it's too late. Anyway, so the border crisis is in part a politically motivated bullshit tool by the opposing side, because it doesn't matter who's in charge. There's always a problem with the border. And yet, the border, it's like the immigrants. The immigrant problems in this country, I mean, they go on and on and on about, immigrants and so on and so forth. And the fact of the matter is, our country can't function without a steady influx of immigrants. Our country has been a beacon for hope for humanity for 250 years. Maybe not quite 250 years, because I'm not so sure that a whole lot of humanity would have wanted to come here back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Just saying. And yet, many did. Historically speaking, our southern border is just the latest in a long litany of immigration crisis. You only have to go back and go, to look at the frickin' Ellis Island photos. Here's this one in the right corner. It's Ellis Island photo. So at one time there was the Great Potato Famine in Ireland drove tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Irish immigrants to America's shores, and there was a whole lot of people complaining and fear mongering, and a lot of hardworking, honest Irish people got the crap beat out of them worse. They got treated very poorly. And pretty much every ethnic division in this country at one time or another has suffered from these kinds of issues. Unfortunately, it's the Spanish American, Spanish Mexican, Spanish related folks down south that are taking the brunt of it these days, because they just want a better life for their family and they want a better life for themselves. They want a decent job that allows them to support themselves. They don't want to be, being tormented and tortured by their own government. And I hate to tell you this, guys, y'all might be coming to the wrong country for that. Our country's turning into a shithole with a lot of these practices today, folks. I keep waiting for the day it starts to go. We already have a little bit of that now. You hear the stories every now and then about quite a few expatriates. A lot of Americans choosing to live south of the border. They work in America. They're still Americans, but it's cheaper for them to live south of the border, and they can live like kings down there compared to up here. And so you see a little bit more of a migration. I expect more of that to continue the way things are going now, unless some drastic changes happen in this country. If you have the means to leave, or the weather ought to really do it, knock yourself out. So we look at this giant crisis that's this humanity crisis that's going on our borders, and of course some of the in a pick of revenge. That's what it is. It's political chicanery and political show. It's political sideshow bullshit. But it's petty revenge. So you get a handful of these Republican Southern governors, specifically the ass clown there in Texas, and the ass clown who thinks he's going to be president out of Florida, who has decided, as big publicity stunts, to start shipping people by the truckload, by the busload to northern cities. So like cities in New York and Chicago and things like that. Well, you want to love all these immigrants, and you want to have a sanctuary city. Well, fine, we'll send them all to you. And there's a lot of questions about some of the tactics that these people use to do that to these people, if those tactics by themselves were not illegal actions. And there's some court stuff going on, some litigation stuff going on that. I don't expect it to go anywhere. I expect it to, typical of a lot of polygons, shenanigans, and bullshit, it will get swept under the table or conveniently dropped off the docket at some point. Right? But the fact is, we still have the fact that, okay, Biden's administration has rubber stamped basically an okay, come to America, we will figure it out. That's pretty much what he said, and that message is spread, and it's continuing to spread. And so we get scenes like this where we got hundreds of maybe thousands of people showing up in tiny towns along the border, at the border crossings, and they're not prepared to handle any of this anyway. That creates a horrible, horrible crisis for the local communities. And then as a state level, yeah, I can see Florida and specifically Texas, the Texas government getting cheesed off by how they are the ones that seem like they get stuck with the most of it. I mean, we hear a lot of crap coming out of Texas about it. You don't hear so much about it coming out of the Southern California border because you know damn well the same problem's got to be going on across the border, right? The border where it runs up against New Mexico, there are a couple crossings there, crossings in South California. So at the end of the day, Biden's part of the problem. Biden's office they need to figure out this problem. They need to figure out what it is they can and can't do or are willing to do, and actually step up and do it. Just opening this open door policy for just about everybody. It's stupid. I mean, I get it. We want and need a steady supply of new people coming to our country. Our population growth is diminishing just like a lot of the Western countries and places like Japan, South Korea. This is a crisis. China, this is a crisis. So we need those people to come in. We need the fresh blood. We also need the workforce. There's just far too many low-end jobs, that most Americans won't work and won't do. We have to be utterly desperate to go out there and work in the damn fields by hand. The backbreaking work that a lot of these South American migrants perform, God, they deserve better pay just for the fact of what they do, right? But so there's ways and there's means and there's issues that can be addressed in this. The problem then is magnified by all these southern countries, all these South American countries that just look toward America and go, hey, let them through. Let the Americans have them. Let them through. So they're doing absolutely nothing at their own borders to prevent this migration of this migration to humanity. And so amongst them, are you getting some lowlifes and you getting some questionable, dodgy individuals? Well, sure you are. You can't not do that when you get that volume of people coming through. For every one nut job, there's 500 people that are decent people. They deserve a right and chance. The problem, back to the full circle thing. Too much is too much. I get it. I do. Mr. President Biden, I do get it. I understand. But there's such a thing as, a fire hose. There's such, difference between a garden hose and a fire hose. It's sad and it's sorry. It's sad, and a lot of the good people will be, ideally denied access to America, and they'll continue to keep trying. But no. So the fact that we do not have an open border, people are not just driving across the border willy-nilly. They're not just bringing truckloads of fentanyl across the border, piled high and wide for everybody to see, because that ain't working. Those hard-working men and women of the Border Patrol and the police agencies and other agencies that we have across the southern United States to help combat and deal with this kind of crap are working their asses off, and in some cases being grossly underappreciated for the amount of work that they do. And they're being currently in a current era where they really want to defund them too. That's just it's crazy. Some of the hardcore MAGA nuts in Congress who their answer is just cut the budget. We'll just slash 80% out of everything. So you think somehow that's going to make things better or what? Or is it going to make it worse under the Democrats? Well, the Democrats are in office. Just political ploys to make the Democrats look bad or to create issues to somehow so the GOP can wave fingers and go, see, see, see. Really? That's the best you got? I mean, honestly, is that the best you got? You know, where the hell's my other finger? There you go. Stupid angles. I'm trying to keep the glare of the window from overwhelming the damn crappy camera. So, right? Yeah, we got problems, and there's no clear and easy solutions to this. No, but we'll just take a deep dive. Let's just take a deep dive down the rabbit hole, right? Because I like the rabbit holes, and you just never know where things would go, right? So, if it was me, if I was president, y'all wouldn't like it. Republicans, Democrats, Independents. That would not be. I don't know how popular for president I would make because first off, minute these ass clowns, we would not have basically a carte blanche for everybody coming up to the border to come in. We would not do that because that's not a good idea. It's just not. I'm not saying to shut them out completely. No, that's also un-American, and it's just not going to happen. It just goes against our best interests. All you got to do is look at some of the shenanigans that they pulled in Florida not too long ago about undocumented immigrants, and then suddenly they're having a crisis for employment. They can't get enough people working construction. Oh my God, those used to be damn good jobs. They are good paying jobs. Isn't it funny how you're Americans want to work those damn back breaking, sweat busting, damn dirt fucking inhaling manual labor jobs that that a lot of people attribute to the folks that I don't know if you've ever tried to do plumbing or electrical work or construction itself, actual construction. That ain't just for many idiots. Those people work hard and they learn some damn good skills because if they do shoddy work, we all pay for it. So those are trades. They're called trades for a reason, and they're supposed to be really good paying. So the fact that so many quote illegals are working for these companies tells me either those companies are not paying their base workers very well, or B, they just can't somehow we look too much down on these jobs anymore, and nobody wants to do them. It's just too much bullshit, too much work, too much hard crap. Right? So, yeah, if I was president, and people like Matt Gaetz going on about and McCarthy going on about the border, do you want to close the border? Shut the fucking border. That's how I'd be. I'm an asshole, and I tell them now, due to the absolute insistence of my colleagues over here on the other side of the aisle that we absolutely must do something to stop the flow of drugs and illegal people coming across the border. We are going to close the border for 90 days. And when I mean close the border, I mean fucking close the border. Nothing goes across the border. Nobody goes north, nobody goes south, no trucks, no airplanes, no boats, nothing. Nothing. I know full well just how big of a hit the economy would take. That's why I said I'm a vindictive bastard, and I have no problems with pulling that sort of absolute. World only understands absolutes these days. Shut the damn border. Let's shut it for 90 days and see how long y'all keep screaming. See how long it takes before you suddenly flip the switch and start crying that the border needs to be open. Well, which is it? You want an open border or a closed border? Right? Right? Meanwhile, if America truly wanted to have been an imperialistic power, like so much of the European continent was at one time or another back in the previous century, well, when we invaded Mexico, well, we did that once, kicked their butts. Perhaps we shouldn't have gave it back. Maybe she would have just kept it, added it to the great imperial American, whatever, and just keep going. It's the same like Panama. Why did we sign a contract? Why did we sign a 100-year lease, a 99-year lease? In those days, we should have just taken the damn country over. Is that a right way of doing things? Probably not. Is that a progressive thing? Hell no. Solves some problems, doesn't it? Creates a bunch of others. So that's the kernel of everything we do. We fix one thing and two other things have a problem, and everything's interchanged or interlinked, and they're just little dominoes waiting to get flicked and tossed and broken down. So we have a broken border system. Sure, the immigration system's a mess. Yeah, is Biden's White House expediting that, making it worse? Yeah, it's pretty obvious they are. And can they do something about it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can. They don't want to, though. That's part of that F you, right? F you. Do what I want my way. You don't like it. Anyway, what do you do about it? How do you fix America? How do you go about fixing all the problems? Walls don't work. Incarceration don't work. What do you do? How do you find a solution? Completely shutting them out is catastrophic. If, like I said, if nothing else, the recent lessons they've learned in Florida, where the GOP they're actually members of the Republican Party, quote off camera pleading with people to tell their friends and their neighbors and their relatives it's just a political stunt for them not to leave the state. Please don't go away. Please, we're not going to arrest you for working in a construction site if you don't have your green card. Even though we just flat out said that's what we're going to do, we're going to punish everybody and we're going to arrest everybody and we're going to put you in prison, blah, 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 because we passed a law that says we're going to do that. Oh, but that's just political theater. We're not actually going to enforce the law. Isn't that ironic? How many of these laws and other things that get pushed through Congress that eventually just never get enacted properly, never get properly funded, just never really achieve anything. And then years later, you tried this and you tried that, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's because you really didn't try to give it an effort, give it a chance. Hey, America, we've been fighting this so-called bullshit war on drugs and these immigration problems at the southern border for the better part of 50 damn years, if not longer. Historically speaking, it goes back longer. But more pertinently to modern times, the last 50 years, this has been a problem, and it doesn't matter who the fuck's in charge. Doesn't matter who problem in charge because nobody really wants to fix the problem. They just like it to be there so they can wave it around and wheel it out every now and then. Meanwhile, a lot of business as usual goes on, on the side and under the table, because that's how America really works. Right? Corruption at every damn step of the way, and nobody gives a shit. There's so much corruption that we take it for granted that it's just normal. Normal way of doing business. It's pathetic. Yeah. Well, how do we fix this? I don't know. I don't know that we can fix it. All we can do is mitigate it. Lessen the impact, tighten up some things, perhaps stop encouraging people to come here, in droves. Stop. I don't know. I know the answer is not putting minefields at the border. You want to put up a fence? Don't do it half-assed. You got to put up a minefield to go with the fence, because that's the only way to really keep people out. And even then, it won't keep people out. It just makes it more likely you killing people trying to get in and occasionally trying to get out. It's so some of this shenanigans that they're pulling down south, putting razor blade, big saw blades on floaters in the middle of the water, intentionally designed so that people will get hung up and drown. Young people, children, expectant mothers. Yeah, they're immigrants, but they're still people. They're not statistics and numbers. They're American, or they're human beings. Potentially Americans. A future possible vice president or congressman were there. I guess you can't. I don't know if you can be vice president. I know you can't be president. Your kid might though. Everybody in America, the exception of the Native Americans. Hey, Native Americans. Yeah, y'all got a raw deal. Yeah, I feel sorry for you. I do. I'm empathetic. But guess what? You're not really 100% native here either. Yeah. There's no such thing as Native Americans, Indigenous Americans. Science has proven that everybody come across some damn land bridge or manage to get here in little boats every now and then. So we all come from somewhere else. Everybody in the great North and South American continents all immigrated here from there. Just saying.